Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County on our new Tacoma fuel line, and in this video we're going to stay around this area of the map and focus on getting more fuel deliveries out, as well as refining some highway connections in the area. And so as we can see here in the last video, we set up this fuel line that brings oil from these oil wells down to the oil refinery or this train station. A train then picks up that oil, takes over to this fuel refinery, where then that fuel comes into our city of Tacoma. Now currently we're only delivering the fuel into the city of Tacoma, but I think what I'd really like to do in this video is get this highway connection made through Tacoma. We'll leave a little end off out this way so that we can expand it out towards Lincoln in the future, but we'll have a highway connection over here near our cargo station, and then we can start to deliver that fuel by truck into Houston. And then along the same lines as that, we might also start setting up some bus connections between cities, since we've been really struggling to keep up with some of the demand that we currently have on our train lines. And so that's what we're going to focus on mainly in this video. If we end up having time at the end, we might start detailing some of these industries that we placed down in order to make this work. But I think I want to focus on getting the connection made first, so we can make the most out of this line before we worry about the other details of the industries. Alright, so as for our highway connection here in Tacoma, I think first, when we first built this in here, we wanted it to sort of come through the center of Tacoma, and I just don't think that's really going to work out at this point. I think it's a little bit too busy down here by the edge of the lake, and also we don't really get any good areas where we can bridge across or go around, since our train line currently occupies our route around the end of the river here. And so I think what our better option is to come straight through here, and then we'll sort of curve it to align with the street grid, and then somewhere in this area we're going to turn. We'll cut through these streets yet again, which is where we're going to have our connection to this cargo area, and then eventually that's going to curve around and then come over where we can then bridge across, probably somewhere around here, across the river, so we can get a connection eventually into Lincoln. And so I think we'll waste no time just getting right into this. There's not really much more to do before this, so we'll be back once this connection is made. We'll refine our connection here at this road, since we don't have one. We'll probably make a connection somewhere closer to the middle of Tacoma, and then we'll also have a connection over near our cargo station. Alright, and so now we have our highway coming by Tacoma. So let's walk through that a little bit. We added some on and off ramps out here on these roads, as I do plan for this area to get developed a little bit more in the future. And then these connections will be pretty useful for trucks coming to and from Houston if they need to get up into this area instead of getting off right here on our main road. But continuing on, we have a little bridge over this road here, and I think that will suit that just fine. This area, we'll fill in this side of the highway with something. I think we have enough roads here where we don't need anything coming across or under our highway in here. And then right here is where we have our large connection to our main road. Hopefully this ends up working out okay. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to get a street under this section of the bridge, but it looks like we might be able to fit one here. I'm not too sure. We'll have to see sort of what happens with that. But I think this is a pretty vital connection, and it comes out pretty clean. We might even see these cars turn onto the highway. Hopefully they're not going to any of the buildings here. Okay, well, it looks like they're both going all the way down here instead of turning on. But if we check our destinations layer, we do see some people are coming up and using that. I guess we just haven't seen those cars yet. But anyway, moving on. It looks like we're going to have to come back and lock these streets, but we'll keep this on pause for now. Moving farther out to our cargo station, we have sort of this depressed highway section where our roads can then bridge over. But then here, as we get to our cargo area, we tunnel under it, so we didn't have to conflict with any existing infrastructure. And then we just have these ramps coming around and up, connecting pretty much right to where we would need them to make connections to this station here. And then, of course, our highway just sort of ends here. We'll have to think about how we want to connect that to Lincoln later. I think it's going to end up just being a bridge right across here. Now, unfortunately, this does get to be sort of in the territory of potentially slightly unrealistic and extremely expensive, but maybe a suspension bridge, although that looks extremely unreasonable. I think maybe if we had like 3 or 4 pillars, we could still sort of argue that, but I think that's 8. We might have to play around with it a little bit to find something that's maybe a bit more reasonable, but we're not dealing with that issue right now. That's a problem for another time, especially since I'm really happy with the connections we're able to make here inside of Tacoma. Alright, so now that we have these connections made, we can go over to Houston and prepare ourselves to receive fuel over there. Since our connection in Tacoma is pretty much already made, we might just have to throw another station that would be pretty much dedicated just to fuel, but that shouldn't be too hard. But again, our plan is to truck fuel from this station across the highway all the way into our city of Houston. And so really, I think how this is going to work is we're going to have a sort of distribution area here where all of our trucks coming in from the highway are going to come. It's right off of the highway, so it wouldn't be conflicting with the traffic of our other trucks. And then once it's sort of in this area, we can truck it into the different areas of Houston that then need fuel. So I think that's going to be another project that we're going to do here real quick. So we'll set up a little cargo distribution area here, and then I think we might even set up a bus stop or bus station somewhere here so we can have buses beginning to go between our cities. And this could also help fuel this bus line a bit more, with that being one of our main connections there. Alright, so here is our Houston distribution center. I think this came out pretty nice for the area. I think this space back here isn't really going to get used much, so that actually turns out really nice. We didn't have to go too far back with this. But as you can see, we got 4 truck stations here. Hopefully this will be enough with trucks bringing in deliveries and then the individual lines that will be coming and going. But if not, we can always double up on some of these. Overall, I think the design of this really sort of fits the size that we're going for. If we zoom out here, it doesn't take up too much space in the grand scheme of what Houston is, but you can see we have a warehouse here, some roads going through, a parking lot, and then a bunch of sort of truck service areas back here for the trucks that would be coming and going throughout all of this. And then we have a bus station here. I think there's some other bus stations that we'll unlock a little bit later on, hopefully not too farther in the future, so I didn't go too crazy with getting this set because I know we're going to be replacing it eventually. So I think this will serve us just fine for what we're going to use it for. And so I think really all that's left to do is set up our lines between Houston and Tacoma. And so again, I think we're going to aim for a fuel line and then maybe a bus line. Now we do have to still decide where that bus station is going to be. And I think maybe in this area, it probably wouldn't hurt to have it. It's sort of at an intersection of a few major lines that we have running through the city. It would be right down the road from the train station. So this line here is only 1 or 2 stops away. And then we have a lot of our other larger connecting lines coming through the area. We'll have to see how large our catchment area would be, but hopefully we can get some of these stations in here, and that would really help us with covering as much of Tacoma as possible. Alright, so here's our bus station for Tacoma. We couldn't really get any closer, and unfortunately it doesn't connect to the train station, but it does cover these stations here, it looks like, so that's going to be pretty important with overall connection. So now really I think we're ready to set up all these lines. So let's start off with the bus line since that'll be a little bit more straightforward. Now we do have, it looks like this is going to be probably our best bus. It is modded in, so that's why the stats are so different compared to everything else. So we're going to have to be a little bit wary about the running costs and everything else here, as we want to make sure it's still balanced, but from what I'm seeing, it looks like it should be okay. It's a capacity of 15, which is about in line with what we're already seeing, a top speed of 50 miles an hour, which makes sense for highway speeds. Now, the only thing we would need to keep an eye on is the running cost is almost double as much as any other bus that we currently have. But given that this is a long distance route between cities, maybe we go for 12 buses to start out with to see what kind of demand there is, and then at that point we can go from Tacoma into Houston here. And so then before we set up our fuel line, we'll actually want to make sure we have coverage in Houston. So we'll find our truck unload stop, and it looks like all of the fuel is in this area. So unfortunately, this line is going to have to run through most of the city to deliver the fuel where it needs to go. But I think that's better than what we're currently running and trying to squeeze as all the fuel coming in through this port here. And so maybe we go with the approach of a few smaller lines. So we'll have one line here, and then maybe another line right about here, and that would look like that would cover pretty much all that we're not getting right now, because I think right now this is the only spot we're delivering fuel. Maybe somewhere else in the city, but I don't think so. It doesn't look like it. So those 2 lines will be where we deliver our fuel to. So now we can start to set up our fuel lines coming from Tacoma into Houston. And so given that we'll be traveling long distance with this fuel, we'll go with the highest top speed and highest capacity trucks that we have. We're going to need quite a few to get this to work. We'll start with 20, and actually I think what we're going to do is we need a stop somewhere here for the fuel to pick up from the train station. And so we can just use this station here. I think we'll keep our existing fuel line on here. This station is getting a bit overloaded, so we're going to have to maybe think about how we deal with that. But anyway, coming back to our truck depot, we'll go back and get the 20 trucks that I think we'll need for this. Grab those, and then those will go from this station to our distribution center over in Houston. Now, unfortunately, I know this means our trucks will be traveling empty on the return trip, but maybe a bit farther in the future, once we're a bit more established with some of our fuel coming into Houston here, maybe we can just put fuel in here that we send on the return trip, although that would sort of cancel things out. So I'm not sure if there's really a way to make it work with fuel, since the fuel trucks can only take fuel, but certainly with other goods there might be room for a sort of exchange there between the cities. So now that we're here, we can buy some trucks that will go throughout Houston, and these ones can be the slightly cheaper trucks here, since we're not going to worry too much about them. And I think we'll go with 5 on each line for now. We'll see what kind of rate that gives us, and then once we sort of let those settle in, we can start to adjust how those work. Alright, so those lines are set up. We'll slowly start to see that begin trickling into Houston. We can see our buses are well on their way, as well as our trucks. So we're going to balance out some of the rates once they spread out a bit more, but I think we've done a good amount so far in this video. Alright, and so I've let things run for a little bit, and we can begin to sort of start to see the results of what we've done and maybe make some adjustments. So the first thing I want to do is check our destinations layer. We can start to see people using this highway, especially some of these on and off ramps that we built throughout the city. I have seen a few people come all the way out here and use these exits. It's not often, but it does happen occasionally, but I'm sure once we connect the link in this area, will get used a lot more. But moving on to our buses, it doesn't seem like anyone's using it quite yet, but I do want to give it a bit of time, as this is our first bus coming back on the return trip, so obviously we're not going to really have much demand from just the first trip, so it might take a bit more before we start seeing people moving around. We might have to ultimately end up scrapping this line if it doesn't work out, or maybe only run very few buses, but even if there is a chance that we can start to move a few people by bus alongside of our trains, that would be greatly helpful overall with this. And then moving on to our fuel line, again, much similar to our buses, these trucks are only just starting to make their way back from Houston. We can start to see the first trucks coming back here. As you can see, those are all leaving the station down here. So obviously we're not going to see much of anything probably in this video as well with that, but it'll certainly begin moving here shortly as we can come over to our fuel refinery, and we can see Houston is now a consumer from this fuel refinery. So I think now, though, we can start to look at some overall numbers and begin adjusting this fuel line so that we can provide everything we need to. So I think let's start at Houston, where we're going to need to sort of work from the root of this. And so we have these two fuel lines here, and each of them operate at about a rate of 70. I think maybe I want to get that up to 150. That seems like a good number for how much these stops will be covering at each station. So we'll get one more there. That's close enough. And then here, this one is at 65. We will duplicate those vehicles and probably get two more here, since this one does cover slightly more than the other line. So that means overall then we'll be needing 300 fuel coming in from that line. So if we take a look here, hopefully this rate is updated since it's not moving anything at the moment, but it's currently at 90. We'll have to get that up to 300. So that's going to be quite a few vehicles coming through on our highway, but ultimately this is all for the benefit of Houston. And of course, as we get larger and larger trucks, routes like this will only become easier. So I think we'll stay there just under 300. I'm sure our numbers will slowly adjust over time. I don't want to get too many trucks going back and forth here. And then I want to take a look quick at our bus rate. So yeah, 91 seems maybe a little high, but of course once we start seeing people waiting and so on, maybe that might change, but I'm not going to make any judgment decisions on this bus line just yet. So we'll leave that. Moving on to our train. So this train can move at a rate of 202. Now, this is when we have to factor in how much we're delivering into Tacoma. Now, I think what we did was we aimed for around 200. And we're certainly delivering way more than that. So we can probably sell one or two of these vehicles. But 238 regardless. If we look at our unload stop for the fuel, it does cover most of that area. So I think we'll assume 200 for Tacoma, 300 for Houston. So that means if we find our fuel train, which is right here, I think what we're going to want to do is get 3 of these trains running. So that'll be around 600, but that does leave us with some room to grow in the future. So we'll manage the vehicle, we'll duplicate it once, and then one more time. So again, that brings us up to 600. Moving backwards, that means here at our oil refinery, this will need to receive, I believe it's 1200 oil. So that means this line, it's actually almost already at 600. We just need to get a few more vehicles. And there we go, well over 600 on that. So then that means our other truck line here, this also needs to go up to 600. So we'll have to duplicate a few of these. And we're actually pretty close, so hopefully it won't take too long to adjust for this. These oil wells are very quickly upgrading, so that's good to see. And then I think that's everything on our fuel line balanced out. We'll now just have to wait for all these trucks to come through and exit, and it looks like they're going to take their time going around, so this is going to take a while to clear up. But I think we are finally set in this area. Now, unfortunately, we didn't really have much time to come back and detail these industries, but that is on our list. However, for now, I think we're going to take a closer look at the other projects that we did in this video, and then when we come back, we will talk about some next steps and future projects. Alright, and so now we're back here as we drive by Tacoma. Let's go around and talk about some next steps and future projects that I want to get going around the map here. So obviously I want to start detailing these industries. It's not going to be anything too crazy, but just a few assets around it, maybe flatten out the terrain and make sure everything sort of looks cohesive with them. So we'll have the fuel refinery, the 2 oil wells up here, and then our oil refinery over this way. We will definitely do one of them in the next video. I'll try to make that the first thing that we do, and then we'll slowly work on the other ones as I've mentioned before. And then another thing I want to do is again continue with our highway. I think we're making good progress with it. We're really starting to see in some areas across the map how beneficial it is to have these connections, specifically here near Houston and our connections to Salt Lake City and Portland. We can see this section of the highway really getting a lot of good use. It seems to be more specifically coming in and out of Salt Lake City. It doesn't look like anyone's actually going from Houston to Portland or Portland to Houston, but I guess that's okay. We'll probably see more use of this as time goes on, especially maybe if we get a bus line that goes from Houston directly to Portland. That might actually end up being a bit more beneficial than taking the train all the way there, since it is such a roundabout way to go between the two cities. But that's something we'll have to focus on later. But I guess while we're on that topic, getting more of these bus connections throughout the map between cities I think would be really good, specifically near these entrance and exits to our highway network, since we do see some of these red lines coming into Salt Lake City, and although it doesn't look too bad, it will only continue to get worse as time goes on. And checking up on other areas of our highway, out by Allentown, this is finally starting to get a decent amount of use. Coming out to Pittsburgh, this is getting used quite well, and it looks like we're getting some private transportation coming around and going this way, so that's good to see. We did end it off out here, so I don't expect to see too much demand coming up this way. And this area of Pittsburgh has actually grown in somewhat nicely. I think there's a few areas I'd clean up. Like, I don't think we'd have some buildings on this side of the road, so we might have to delete some buildings and maybe place collision tiles along here. But I think a lot of the other areas, some of the other buildings in this area really don't look too bad, especially from a distance. So I think maybe eventually expanding this a bit more would be a fun project to do later on. And then I think I want to come to our town of Monroe and expand that a little bit more. Now, because this is one that we've built ourselves, it doesn't grow by itself, so any growth we want to see here we have to do by ourselves, which unfortunately means we have to set aside time to do that. But I think maybe one more decent expansion of Monroe and we might be set for a while. Maybe get this block filled out, some of these roads, maybe extend some more windy roads outside of the town. But I think especially now that we have this train station set up, and we're getting cargo and people coming in here, we're definitely due to make this fit a little bit better. Alright, and so that's going to be all for this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.